The Dearborn Independent, October 1st, 1927, Volume 27, Number 50. Mr. Ford's page of the Dearborn Independent. The Job of Thinking. The secrets of life are open to the thinker. Thinking is the work of digging to the foundations and has the aid of higher lights. Merely having ideas is not thinking. Our minds, when they are not focused on a worthy work which engages every faculty, become the playground for ideas. But they are other people's ideas, not our own. We prefer the swarm of other people's ideas to our own thinking because thinking is the hardest kind of work a mortal can do. And just because it is hardest, the higher rewards are reserved to it. Thinking calls for facts. Facts are found by digging. But he who has gathered this wealth is well equipped for life. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the probable reason why so few engage in it. Even to say this about thinking is of doubtful use because so few have had enough experience of thinking to enable them to judge whether the statement is true or false. If it were possible first to teach the people how to go to work to think, then to think, there would be hope for all sort of things. Just to have ideas is not necessarily to think. Probably the man who comes to you most frequently with ideas is the man who has never thought one thought in his life. His only notion of the value of ideas is derived from the excitement which they cause in him. And as some of the best ideas are not exciting or stimulating at all, his judgment on ideas does not indicate even a reasonably competent mind. It is easy to have ideas, but whose are they, and what are they worth? Think of the experience of an average mind during the course of the average day. Think of the tens of thousands of impressions, ideas that swarm across it as passengers over the bridge. From newspapers and signs and voices comes a perfect torrent of ideas respecting all the things in creation, from the merits of a particular brand of chewing gum to the care which is advertised for an immortal soul. All this clamor across the mind. And when they stop clamoring, we get books or go to plays to start another procession of ideas. Whose are they? Certainly they're not ours. So that merely having ideas is not thinking. Merely having something on my mind is not thinking. Merely wondering is not thinking. Merely worrying is not thinking. Merely listening with all the intentness to catch and remember something that someone is offering as the essence of wisdom is not thinking. We have intelligence to spare. Intelligence is ability to receive. But we have little thinking. Thinking is the creative or it is analytical. Intelligence comprehends the outlines of a thing. Thinking breaks it into its elements, analyzes it, puts it together again. In the long, long story of the soul of the people, it may be providential that for the present every person is not a thinker. It may be that the earth until this time has not been ready to support races given to thought. It may be that if everyone were a thinker at this stage of our common life, we should find life not so pliable as it will one day become, and so all the thinking would be frustrated. We cannot say positively as to that. At the best, it is but speculation. But when you begin to see that possibly everything has been about all that it could be up to the present time, then it may be true that thus far there has been enough thinking, at least as much thinking as could well be. One feels, however, that regardless of the fact that up to the present time everything has been about all that it could be under the circumstances, there is a sense in which from the moment forward a new era may emerge, if the necessary human components of a new era decide so. Perhaps the most that one can hope for is to drive home a conviction that as people we have not done much thinking. If we think we have been thinking and find out that we have not, the jolt of discovery may be of service to us. It is interesting to speculate whether the brain originates or only transmits ideas, whether the mind really originates thoughts, or is it a wireless that catches them out of the great invisible and translates them into terms of our experience. A decision made upon speculative ground may never be entirely satisfactory, but an opinion arrived at by experience may become very useful as a working hint. Most of us will say that ideas have come to us without expectation of our own, certainly without conscious effort of our own, and have not been inferior ideas either. Sometimes it does seem that the air is full of messages, and that those whose receivers are attuned to the messages catch them. Whether these are ideas originating in minds all about us and are being broadcast in the ether of universal mind, or belong to a general source of ideas, is a question we play with occasionally. The point is, we don't know. But we do know that the experience of receiving ideas is a real experience. It seems also that the degree of receptivity is in proportion to the degree of activity of the other side. That is, if one uses the mind quite actively, the mind is thereby made keener to catch impressions which do not seem to originate within it. And whether ideas may come, none ever comes without making a demand on the voluntary action of the mind in realizing or fixing its value. The very best ideas, when they come, tax the intelligence afterwards to work them out and make them the useful and general possession of men. So that particularly the academic question is settled. The mind is neither one nor the other. It is both. It receives, it also works. But thinking pertains more to that less romantic activity which we call working.